Hi everyone, welcome back to this economy boosting sessions for just 10 minutes daily. This is Nisha Nujmuti, your educator at Academy, an expert in Indian economy, current affairs and MCQs. So today if you see, we have another interesting trending economy topic of the day, which is none other than Adaptation Gap Report of 2020. So let's quickly have a look into what is this report all about. It has so much to talk with regard to the current COVID-19 perspective, with regard to the current climate change, and also with regard to so many other factors due to which we are facing a lot of troubles or issues. So now talking about the adaptation gap report, it is put forward by the UN. Is it only the UN? It is rather whom, guys? The UNEP, United Nations Environment Program, I can say. So recently they have actually put forward a report called as Adaptation Gap Report 2020, wherein they'll start estimating the annual or the yearly cost of the adaptation to the effects of climate change, exclusively for developing countries like India, to at least quadruple by the year 2050. So now because of the so-called environmental issue, don't you think so the economy will be affected? So now at one stroke, if you see, this particular topic will come under the environmental area. It is true. But then why I am taking this topic under the economy categories? Because as far as a developing economy is concerned, because of this so-called environmental factor, definitely it will have an impact on the economy as well. So in that perspective, I am taking this topic here. Clear? And now talking about the adaptation gap report, why this particular topic is news is, apart from UNEP, estimating the so-called adaptation gap report, the current cost for these countries, that is exclusively developing countries, guys, was in the range of, let's say, $70 billion, which is 5.1 lakh crore rupees. And this can even increase from 70 to 140 to 300 billion. It can double and triple, they can say, in the coming years 2030, and also by 2050 it will be even more if the situation is going like this. So now with regard to the adaptation gap report, let's quickly have a look into a few important points. Before that, let's have a look into what is adaptation cost. Now it's a kind of cost expenditure that you have to incur with regard to planning, preparing for, facilitating and implementing adaptation measures. What can you do to solve this particular issue? Let's say, for example, climate change. It is one of the burning issues for the entire globe. As far as a developing economy like India is concerned, it is indeed terrible, I can say, right? So what can you do to literally, overcome that? So that is called as adaptation measures. The planning, getting prepared for that, facilitating, implementing, sab kuch like that. And now the adaptation cost, it is keeping on and on increasing, and that has actually outspaced the growth of something called as adaptation finance. And that's one of the reasons which is, for a maintained adaptation finance gap. By the way, what is adaptation finance, guys? Let's have a quick look into that concept as well. Now, it refers to the flow of funds to developing countries. Who will do that? The developed countries only will do that. So now these countries, to mitigate the issues of climate change and other perspective, they need funding, and that will be done by the developed country. So now adaptation finance is the flow of fund to developing or emerging countries to help them tide over the damages which has been caused by the weather events, exclusively climate change. If you see your green global climate facility, then green climate, all these things, the funding of these organizations, it has been done by the developed economies to the developing economy. And as far as the country India is concerned, yes, we need the support of advanced country to mitigate all these issues. And what is adaptation finance gap? The difference between adaptation cost and adaptation finance. This is why I taught you what is this adaptation finance and also adaptation cost in the previous slide. So you'll be able to understand what is a gap called as adaptation finance gap. Now keeping this in mind, let's quickly have a look into the so-called report, that is Adaptation Gap Report 2020. We all know that, especially with regard to the developing economy, the adaptation is quite greater compared to the developed countries, right? And the developing countries, especially in Africa and Asia, including India, they are least equipped. That is, we do not have the proper technology or resource or funding to tackle all these issues with regard to climate change, like how the developed economy is been doing or how they have been able to tackle it. So we need the help of these developed countries through such kind of schemes or programs to help us mitigate this. And what are the global challenges? We all know that the entire globe, it's not just India, Africa, or let's say US, rather the entire globe is heading for at least a 3 degrees Celsius temperature rise in this century. And that's as per the current Paris Agreement. Okay, that is what they put forward. And even if we limit global warming to well below, let's say, 2 degrees Celsius or even below 1.5 degrees Celsius, still the poor countries will suffer. Which means the globe is actually caught up in a trap with regard to the environmental perspective and damages. And now, talking about the so-called COVID-19 pandemic, now it has even impacted the so-called adaptation efforts. But its effect is not been quantified, but still there has been a lot of effort as such. Not effort, sorry, a lot of effect as such. Apart from this, what are the other challenges that we are facing, or let's say the entire globe is facing as far as the adaptation gap report is concerned? Last year it was said that in the year 2019-20, it was not just marked by pandemic, right? Pandemic was one side, but then we could see the national calamities, the devastating ones like floods, drought, storm, forest fire, the locust plague, sab kuch. Entire globe, in several parts of the country you could see all these things. Around 50 million lives globally got affected. So don't you think it's high time that we are getting all the adaptation measures to overcome this? And with regard to climate change, global adaptation is a must. And because the reason for that is 3/4 of all the countries, I can tell you, have adopted at least one climate change adaptation planning instrument. And most of the developing countries, I can tell you, they are still working on it with regard to national adaptation plans. Otherwise, we will not be able to tackle the so-called burning issue that is climate change, that is causing a great impact to so many other related perspectives and thereby hindering or causing a hurdle to the growth and development of a country. What are the Indian initiatives, guys, in this context of the so-called UNEP's adaptation gap report? We also have to look into the few Indian initiatives that we have taken to fight the so-called climate change, and they are quite important from the prelims perspective. One is our country shifted from Bharat stage 4, that is BS4 to BS6. There is no BS5. Okay, and that was with effect from 1st April 2020, and it was earlier to be adopted by 2024. And another important initiative to fight climate change was the Ujala scheme. Not the other wala Ujala, guys, which you use for your cloth. This is something else. This is in the context of light, okay. That is, we distributed more than 360 million LED bulbs under the Ujala scheme, which has led to energy saving of, let's say, about 47 billion units of electricity per year. And that has even led to the reduction of 38 million tons of carbon dioxide per year. That is one of the other initiatives taken by us. And yes, we have been successful in that, I should tell you. Apart from that, the other initiatives to fight climate change was the National Clean Air Program. It was launched in the year 2019 and it is for a period of 5 years. And the tentative target is 20 to 30% reduction in the concentration of PM 2.5 and PM 10 concentrations of air pollution, guys. And by the year 2024, they want to achieve the target. And for that, they have adopted the base year or the constant year as 2017. And that's how the National Clean Air Program has been taken into consideration. And we all know that air pollution, it is one of the big issues with regard to our country, India, especially our capital, the NCR region, National Capital Region, Delhi. It is indeed the worst. So all these kind of measures are indeed very, very important. And apart from that, another important measure, if you see, it was Jawaharlal Nehru National Solar Mission in the context of renewable energy. That was launched in the year 2009. And the main objective or the primary objective was achieving grid parity by the year 2022. And along with the coal-based thermal power, and that too, the target they had is for 2030. And that is how the so-called Jawaharlal Nehru National Solar Mission was put up. In short and simple term, guys, through this, they want to increase the share of what? The renewable energy, or let's say solar energy in a country, India's energy mix. We know that energy is indeed the most important resource, right? And these days, the demand for renewable energy is on the rise because the non-renewable energies like petroleum, coal, all these things are overexploited, due to which we depend upon other countries, especially Middle East countries, for importing. So now the next thing is renewable, and that is indeed very important with regard to sustainable development. So that is so taking into consideration that, and also to prevent pollutions and other perspective, this renewable or solar mission is also helpful. And finally, you have the NAPCC. What is that? National Action Plan on Climate Change. It was put forward in the year 2008. And this is basically to create awareness among the representatives of the public, then different agents of government, scientists, academic people, industry communities. That is, we are just making them aware regarding what are the issues or threats which has been caused by the so-called climate change, and what are the steps that we should take to counter them. Otherwise, our own existence will become a big question mark in the coming days. So that is what is discussed under the National Action Plan on Climate Change. So these are the few important initiatives taken by our country, India, in order to fight climate change. So in the context of Adaptation Gap Report of 2020 by the UNEP, this is also quite important for you to study. Clear? So thank you so much, my young officers. I hope it is crystal clear for you people. See you all tomorrow at 8 p.m. with another interesting topic. So before that, guys, a quick reminder to you. You have an amazing compo saving offer going in Unacademy. One subscription to crack it all. Up to 45% discount you're getting for 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, along with extra 10% using my code Nisha IAS Live. to be a part of Unacademy Plus program. Be it free class or plus class, just keep the code NISHA IAS live in mind and get your subscriptions very soon, and make sure that you are in the right track to give a smooth edge to your UPSC CSE preparation. So thank you, my young officers. Below the description box of this particular video, you have the details of my Unacademy profile link and also free class link, which happens at 6 to 7 p.m. daily. And you can just go through the plus courses as well. NCERT economy course, weekend current batch course, current affairs batch course, then ancient history course, all these things. Apart from that, 7 to 7:30 in the same YouTube channel, there is another video as well, YouTube video series going on, which is none other than fundamentals or basics of economy. Quick concept bite plus interlinkaging of them with current affairs and also the discussion of previous year questions. It's indeed an amazing course. Don't miss that as well. Clear? So thank you so much and Jai Hind.